We have discussed asynchronous distributed interfaces in the previous slide, so now we move on to the synchronous distributed interfaces. What does synchronous distributed interfaces means? Anyone have an idea? Okay, the important features of synchronous distributed interfaces is the user that want to communicate in the platform, they are in a different place but they want to communicate in the same time. Let's say I'm now in my home, you are in your hometown, so we want to communicate at this time, so we use asynchronous distributed interfaces. In this case, we can use instant messaging applications such as WhatsApp, and also video conferencing applications such as Zoom and also Skype. This application allow us to communicate in a real time and have an instant feedback. On top of that, a synchronous distributed application also allow us to do group editing, share screen for customer assistance, for examples, give demonstration simultaneously at multiple sites, and allow sharing of information for various application. And I think most of us know this. We play games interactively using synchronous distributed applications, and distance between participants that live apart is no longer an issue. Another common examples of synchronous distributed interfaces is instant messaging application and texting, for example WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook Messenger, Line. So all these applications allow us to communicate instantly regardless of our locations and time differences. Video conferencing is also one of the examples in synchronous distributed interfaces. We usually use Zoom. Anyone haven't tried Zoom before? I think every student in this class have tried Zoom. We use Zoom in one of our online lecture class, if I'm not mistaken, in chapter 3. Even though video conferencing tools such as Zoom help us to meet virtually to get response instantly, but they are also have some limitations. The first one is the response time when we leave or when we enter the session is slow, and also we have problems with the background audio. Sometimes the audio on the background is too loud, so it distracts the viewer. And if more than one person is speaking simultaneously, then it is difficult for the other person who are in the same session to determine who is currently speaking. Participants' preparation before the session is also playing an important role. We need to ensure that there are adequate lighting. So sometimes the lighting used for the session is not bright, or it is too bright and affect audience attention during the session. I need you to study some examples of video conferencing tools and compare between those applications, so we can see what are the limitations and what are the strengths that adhered by each software or applications. There are some issues concerned on video conferencing. Sometimes it involves private or public workspaces belongs to the individual that join the sessions, and it creates unpleasant feelings when we need to disclose our private space, such as our house and our room. So please ensure that none of your private belongings are displayed on the screen during the video conference session. We also should consider whether to disclose or not to disclose the identity of participants. For some person, they're reluctant to disclose their identity. They don't want to be seen during the session, maybe for some reason, we don't know. And most importantly, the locations and also the surroundings when we do the online session. Whether a synchronous or synchronous approach is more appropriate and effective, it depends on the goals and the tasks of the environment or the design that we want to create, and maybe it would depends on the requirements set by the user before we start any design of the interface. So we have to view all those documents and gather some information from the user and guide us through the design, and we need to use that information on deciding whether we want to use a synchronous approach or synchronous communication approach. It depends whether audio or video conferencing is more appealing than chatting, or we just need to include texting, maybe emails or text messaging. It depends on the context and it depends on the goals of the applications. So everyone, we have covered asynchronous communication and also synchronous communications. So I need you to dig more on the examples of application that can be used for asynchronous and also synchronous communications. Some of the application is highlighted in this lecture, but some is not. You may focus on the strength and limitation of each application and understand when it is appropriate for us to use asynchronous communication and synchronous communication. Face-to-face communication interfaces is different from asynchronous and synchronous communication interface, and suitable only if both parties in the communication happen to be in the same place at the same time. It required innovative approaches in order to complete the task. For example, we shared displays from the lecturer workstations and the usage of audience response unit. The audience response unit replaced the traditional show of hands with technology. So the most basic type of audience response unit is the clicker, which is the small handset which is handed out to the audience members before they use to respond to questions asked by the presenter. But as the ownership of smartphones is increased among the students or among the audience, and the quality of internet is improved, the way which this system can be used is changed, moving away from multiple choices questions towards the audience being able to respond with words and even photos or drawings created on the devices and sent to the presenter. And additionally, innovative approaches is also used during the brainstorming, voting, and also ranking in each of communication session. Other examples of face-to-face interfaces is shown in the next slide, so you can browse through the slides and do your own homework to understand the context of its usage. We have come to the end of Module 2, Synchronous and Synchronous Communication. Thank you for viewing the video, and see you again in Module 3 where we will discuss about software agents.